So my name's Michaela. I live in northern Massachusetts, up almost in New Hampshire, and my son is a patient here at Brainwaves. His name is Grayson. He's 5 years old and he's autistic. So we found out about magnetic e-resonance therapy at a particularly challenging point in my son's journey. He suffers from migraines, and he was also engaging in a large volume of self-injurious behavior. He currently has a comprehensive medical team. He has ABA therapy that is holistic and child-focused. He has speech therapy. He has occupational therapy. He has a neurologist. He has a gastroenterologist. He has a psychologist. But even in the setting of all of these interventions that we had brought together for him, we felt like there was something missing. So at that point, we started researching, and I, being a scientist by background, ended up reading a whole bunch of studies on magnetic e-resonance therapy for the treatment of various different things, including but not limited to migraines, and then also some emerging literature on it treating some of the symptomology of autism. We visited Brainwaves for the first time about 1.5 years ago, and we have returned several times since our first treatment. We sought out therapy at Brainwaves because there's so much promising research on particularly the treatment of migraines, but also some of these other challenges that my son was having. So he was having challenges with communication, expressive mostly, but also a little bit receptive. He was having frustration tolerance issues, which are completely understandable if you think about the fact that he's having migraines. He doesn't have the ability to tell us that he's in pain, where the pain is, when it starts, when it ends. He doesn't have the language to tell us when he needs something or wants something. And he also was having a number of difficulties with sleep, which a lot of the literature also indicated this therapy could be helpful for. So before starting at Brainwaves, my husband and I sat down and we talked about what measurable differences it would require for us to consider this therapy a success for our son in particular. And there were a few things. There were an improvement in his headaches, an improvement in his sleep, an improvement in his self-injurious behavior, an improvement in his frustration tolerance. And we sat down and we decided that if we saw a 10% improvement in one or two of these domains, that we would consider this successful. And I can honestly say that we probably saw a 50% plus increase in every single one of those domains, many of them early on in treatment, that qualitatively validated to us that it was helping him. And then we also had the added benefit of the EEGs that Brainwaves does to be able to sit down with the doctor and look at the quantitative measure of success that we were able to also see in his brain scans that were very much correlated with the improvements that we were seeing in person. So we saw instantly improved sleep within the first week. We saw his frustration tolerance and self-injurious behavior, which are kind of 2 for 1, improved dramatically, to the point where quite literally he was experiencing an upwards of 100 attempts at self-injury before we started at Brainwaves, which of course as a parent is devastating. And it's just his little body trying to regulate itself in a world that's completely disabling to him. He didn't have another tool in his toolkit to do that. After now we've had treatment at Brainwaves, if he has 3 or 5 attempts in one day, it's a bad day for him. So that was remarkable. His receptive communication is essentially age appropriate at this point, and his expressive communication is incredibly improved. He's much more fluent in using his AAC device. He has more attempts at vocalization, which are promising for potentially maybe speech someday. So we've seen dramatic improvements in our son. We definitely had fears before starting. I would say there were 2 main fears that we had before we started treatment. As with any intervention, as a parent or just as a human, you're nervous that it's not going to do anything. So we were concerned that, we were going to make this investment in time and energy and money and all of the things, and nothing was going to come from it. My immediate family and I noticed changes within the first week, which we were apprehensive about speaking aloud because, we're his parents and we want to see improvement. But by the end of the second week, his teachers, his grandparents, his aunts and uncles, other people in his circle were noticing improvements. So by the end of, I'd say, that second week, that apprehension was gone. Our fear then transitioned at that point to, what if these changes aren't durable? What if he's now more fluently able to communicate using his AAC, his frustration tolerance is better, and then over time he loses that ability that he gained from therapy. And that was arguably more terrifying because then he will have had experienced the ability to communicate and then lost it. Fortunately, that was absolutely not the case at all. All of Grayson, my son's skills that he built on or created during and after his therapy have not only maintained but also improved over time. So we definitely noticed that the skills that he had built on during therapy continued to improve. What was interesting to us, because we've now had a few additional courses of treatment after our initial, are that although everything continues to improve, each treatment we've experienced bigger gains in different areas. So for example, in our last treatment, Grayson's social skills really, really blossomed. And that's what brought us back for this latest treatment that we've done. And after the treatment ended, continued to build upon those skills. So he was more interested in playing with peers. He was demonstrating better ability to engage with friends at school, with his brother, to play with toys. So I would definitely say that all of the skills that he gained here, he maintained. The most interesting thing about our meetings with Dr. Tershin were that as parents, we're seeing these gains. We're seeing improvements in all of these different domains. But you doubt yourself because you want to see improvement. You want to be able to say, yes, this thing that I chose to do with my son is working. But to be able to look at the parts of his brain on an objective scan that is unbiased, unlike a parent, and correlate that with the qualitative gains that we're seeing at home was fascinating and very validating to us that we made the right choice in coming to Brainwaves. In speaking about our daily interaction with the staff at Brainwaves, I think the first thing that I have to say is that I am so grateful that I found Brainwaves for my son. Obviously, we're grateful for the therapy itself. It's the backstone of the practice. It's what brought us here. But truly coming here and meeting all of the staff, each of the treating clinicians that worked with my son was so incredibly knowledgeable and deeply caring and genuinely curious about what my son needed in these moments of treatment to be comfortable and happy and get the most out of his time here. And that's simply not something that, especially as an autism parent, that you get everywhere. So I'm grateful for the therapy, but I'd say I'm more grateful for the holistic, patient-centered treatment that my son received here by the staff.